Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina Renee, and today I am going to bring you all some news that has happened in our family over the past week. It is not the easiest video to make, but it's a video that I feel like I should make because I've shared these moments with you all, and you know, I do have people who have prayed for my family and for my mom, and I've been very open about this journey that my mom has been on, and she's been very open when she could be about her journey. But on last week, January 5th, 2018, my mother did transition and she passed away. It's easy for me to talk about right now because it's still so fresh and so new. But as the days go on, it does get more difficult because I realize that I can't pick the phone up and call my mom anymore. Or I just can't go see her when I want to. For those of you who have been following my channel for a while, you know that I took care of my mother. And our relationship was just amazing. So I would pretty much go see my mother just about every single day. Our relationship has been, it's been amazing. And before that, it's not that it was rocky, but I was just a normal, typical teenager who wanted to do whatever she wanted to do. And, you know, I tested my mom a lot. God rest her soul. But it did get to a point to where my mother needed full-time, around-the-clock care. And she could no longer get her chemotherapy because the treatments were no longer effective on her. So she so badly wanted to continue chemotherapy and so badly wanted to get the treatment so that she could be here and just continue to fight because she was such a strong woman and she was such an inspirational woman. But everything pretty much took a turn for the worse when she went to the hospital the first time around, and I told you all about that. Her liver pretty much gave up on her. There was still a little bit left, but it was pretty much giving up on her, and if her liver did not get better, she would not be able to get her chemotherapy treatments. And the doctor told her to wait a week, and so she did wait a week to go back to the see if her liver got any better, and it didn't. It didn't get any better, so they were not able to continue any form of chemotherapy. And of course, you all know with cancer, if there's no treatment, then the disease gets stronger and it takes over every part of your body. So in one video, I told you all that the cancer that went away came back in the areas that it went away, and it did come back. It metastasized, and my mother ended up needing more assistance, and our family, we would not have wanted to put my mother in any home care or have anyone come in and take care of her. That just wouldn't work for our family because we're such a strong family, and my mother is such a great mother. And so we finally decided that my mom needed to come and live with my husband and I. Not that my dad couldn't take care of her, but he couldn't take care of her around the clock like she needed. And since I dedicated pretty much my life to taking care of my mom through her final stages, then it was best for her to come live with us. I'd already mentally prepared myself that my mother was not going to make it. And it was easy for me to do that because I was with her every day. And I could see that her body was starting to give up on her. I could see that her mind was starting to kind of dissipate. I could see that although those things were happening to her physically and even mentally, that she still wanted to fight the fight. You know, she wasn't done fighting yet. But she knew. She was starting to forget things like phone numbers. She was starting to forget if she took medication. She was starting to kind of forget where she was. So at that point, I knew that it was time for her to come stay with me so that I could administer the medication to her around the clock and just kind of tend to her and make sure that I kept her as comfortable as possible through her transition. And then she did make it to my house, but she only got to stay with us for one night because the night that she came to my home, I stayed up the entire night, and I told myself, tonight I'm not going to sleep. I'm just going to stay up. I'm going to watch Mom. I'm going to learn her breathing patterns. I'm going to learn what sounds normal. I'm going to learn what doesn't. I'm going to sleep in the same bedroom as her and everything. I set up an entire room for her. We moved Zaria out of Zoe's room, and they moved in the room together, and I transformed Zaria's room into my mom's room, and I made it as comfortable as I possibly could for her and made it like her own. But she only got to spend one night here because that night her breathing was just so labored, and there would be moments when she wouldn't breathe at all, and I'd have to like wake her up to help her breathe. And then she got really weak where she couldn't even like walk, you know, so she needed the assistance of a walker at points. And she started to get a lot of swelling around her abdominal area, and twice they did go in and drain some of the fluid off of her stomach, but it got to a point where they just couldn't do that anymore either, and it probably would have done her more harm than good to remove those fluids. So my mom woke up in the middle of the night at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was early in the morning actually, and she said, "Okay, Trina, it's time to take me to the hospital." So my husband and I, we got up and got her all ready, and I got my mother, and we took her to the hospital, and they ended up admitting her due to the swelling and due to her having stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer. They thought it best to go ahead and admit her and not send her back home. And at that moment, I didn't know that would be where my mom, I didn't know that building would be the building that my mom would spend her last days. I truly thought that she would spend her last days at home with us. I had already mentally prepared myself that my mother was going to pass away in my home. So we got to the hospital, and she just pretty much took a downward spiral. We did end up getting, at that moment when they admitted her into the hospital, I did have the opportunity to reach out to all of my family, on my father's side and on my mother's side, and just said, "Hey, you know, Mom's not doing too good. If anyone wants to see her, I think it's a good idea for you all to just go ahead and come down now." And I'm so glad that I did that, because had I not, then none of my mother's siblings or in-laws would have been here when she took her final breaths. But luckily, everyone was able to make it down. And the times that we spent with my mother in the hospital were two things. They were very scary, but it was also very miraculous and spiritual. And I say that because my siblings and I, my brother came in from LA. My other brother, he lives here in Texas. My sister came back from Louisiana, and I was here. My siblings, we all stayed with my mother pretty much. If we didn't do it every night, one of us was there every night. And then on the final night of her life, we all stayed with her that night. But I can remember a time in the hospital when my mom just wanted to give up. And she finally said, "Trina, I'm ready to go home. And I do not want to go to your house. I want to go home to heaven." And I knew at that point that my mother knew that she was done here on earth, and she was just ready to be where she could finally find some peace. And the process of watching someone's transition and watching their life come to an end, when you have time to prep for it, and when you know how spiritual and how in tune with God that person is, it makes it so much easier. And it made it so much easier for us, because at one point, for a long time through this process, I began to lose my faith. I began to lose my faith because I didn't understand how God could allow someone like my mother, who is a very spiritual woman, who lived her life for Christ, who raised her children in Christ, and, you know, just was, to me, one of the most beautiful human beings on this earth, how he could allow her to go through something so tragic and not heal her from it, and not make her that miracle, because my mother always said that she is that miracle. I began to get angry at God because I didn't understand, and I began to say, you know, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. You know, maybe he isn't who I thought he was. And I began to get angry. I never stopped believing in him, but I was so mad at him, and I was so angry. And my mother ended up slipping into like almost a state of comatose, where she was still breathing on her own, but she couldn't wake up anymore. And she was almost like in a snoring slumber. I do believe that she still could hear us though, because at one point the nurses came in to check on her, and I was holding her hand, and we would always hold her hand. I was holding her hand, and I was getting ready to let go, and she just grabbed me so tight. At this point, she hadn't been awake for hours, and she wouldn't wake up. She was never going to wake up from that slumber. She grabbed my hand so tight, and I just knew that I wasn't going to let go. And I'm like, "Mom, I'm here, and I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to be here with you until you're ready to go, until the end." And that night with my siblings, and there with my mom, and my dad was in the room with my mom, it was just, it was one of the scariest nights, because her breathing became so labored that it sounded like she was struggling. And that is one of the worst feelings in the world, to know that the person you love the most is laying next to you, and they're dying, and there's nothing you can do to make that pain go away. There's just nothing you can do. But you know that it's best to just, I don't know if there's any way to explain it, to be quite honest with you, but it's a helpless feeling. I don't even know what she felt through that process, but I hope that the pain was minimal. We would never know. But I do know that the next morning we all woke up, and thank God my mom was still breathing on her own and she was still there, but she was still in a coma, basically. But my mother's sisters came in and her mom came in, and we were able to take a break and leave and go to get some breakfast. And we went to IHOP against my will because I wanted to go to my mom's favorite restaurant. But we ended up going to IHOP because that's all my sister likes to eat, and we went there. And I'm so glad that we did, because during that process of us being at IHOP, there was this guy who was our waiter, and he was the loudest, flamboyant, but amazing person that I'd ever run into and met. And at first he started like cracking little jokes here and there, and mind you, this man doesn't know us from Who Shot John. He doesn't know my family, he doesn't know my mother, he doesn't know our story. But he came up to us, into our table. It was like 10 of us at the table, and it was 2, 4, it was like 6 adults and like 6 kids. And he came up to our table and he said, you know what, it's on my heart to say something to y'all today. And he spoke to each and every one of us individually. And everything he said to us were things that we'd shared with my mom over the course of our life, or our dreams, our ambitions, whatever it was. He spoke to each one of us, and he was so on point with everything. And he basically just reassured and reaffirmed that my mother, while she's laying in that bed that night, to me, I got from that she was already transitioning. She was already in heaven talking to God. And God was able to take this man in this moment who didn't know us and didn't know our situation, and use him as a vessel to basically speak to us on my mom's behalf, and then reaffirming and reassuring our faith that God is real, and that heaven is real, and that although my mother is no longer going to be here, she's in a place that we could never, ever imagine until we transition over to that space with her. And in that moment, I just knew that my mom was going to be okay. And the things that he told us, I so badly want to share with you guys, because I want you to understand and know that what we experienced was nothing but a miracle. Even through my mom's passing, what we experienced with that man that day at that restaurant was nothing short of a miracle, because I know that that was my mother talking to us through a complete stranger. I know it. I know it. That reaffirmed my faith like nobody's business, y'all. For real. It really did. It made me just want to get closer to God. And it made me want to stop asking why and stop doubting, and just start believing and trusting the process. No matter how hard it may be, or no matter how hard it may seem, it's just made me say, I got it. Like, okay, I understand. We did eventually share with that young man, once he got done like prophesizing to us, that, you know, our mother, as we speak, is actually dying. She's on her dying bed, and she could probably potentially be gone now. But we thank you, because you reaffirmed some things for all of us. And it's just miraculous how that works, you know. Everybody has to go, and I believe my mom went, and she knew that she raised her children a certain way, and there was no way she was going to leave this earth without letting us know, do not lose your faith, because I didn't waste my time with y'all in the church, and I didn't waste my time loving on God, and for y'all to just lose your faith because I got sick. I got sick for a reason, and I don't know if my mother got sick to prove to us that God is real. I will never know the answer to that. I will never know the answer to why my mother is no longer here. But I do know that my mother, it was an angel, and she is an angel now. And we left the restaurant, we got back to the hotel, to the hospital, and my mother was still alive, thank God. And we were able to share our story and everything that was said to us to my aunts and everyone in the room. And my mom was there, and they say that when someone's still in a coma, they can still hear you. And so we always treated my mom as if she could still hear us. And after we told our story and everything, and after we told our story and what happened to us, I went over to my mom to kind of like give her, like, wipe her mouth out, because it looked like it was getting dry. And in that moment, as I was wiping her mouth out, my mom started to pass away in my hands. And there were children in the hospital room, and I just had to tell everyone to get the kids out, get them out of here. Just, it's time for them to go, because I knew in that moment my mom was passing. And it was the scariest feeling in the world, because here I am trying to, here I am with my mother in my hands, and she's dying as we speak. She did not take her last breaths in my hand, but she did begin the process of passing away. And she did so in front of her siblings and her mom and her children. And when she took her final breath, I truly believe that my mother released her spirit on everyone in that room, because she was such a strong and phenomenal woman. And the way we were able to handle her passing away, and the way we were able to help my father give her the homegoing celebration that she deserved, was nothing short of a miracle and miraculous, in the strength that I still have now. And I've been told that it's going to get harder, and I believe that, because I feel like every day it does get harder and harder, because I don't know how many times I wanted to pick that phone up and call my mama, or how many times I wanted to pick the phone up or just text her and say, Mama, guess what just happened? Or Mama, guess what? Or guess what? But her homegoing celebration was amazing. I have no complaints about that. It was a celebration. It was not a sad service. It was a celebration. And that's what my mother wanted. She wanted the celebration, and she looked beautiful, and she looked peaceful, and she looked happy. And that's another thing. When she passed away, she had jaundice really bad in her eyes. And once she finally passed, her frown that she had ended up turning up into like a smile. And she looked so peaceful, and the jaundice in her eyes completely went away, and her eyes were white again. I cannot make this up. I just can't make it up. So I just know that although I may not understand, God had a plan and has a plan, and it's up to myself and my siblings now and my father to just continue what my mother started, and just be a blessing to other people. So I did want to come out here today and share that with you all. My mother did transition and pass away. She lost her battle with cancer on January 5th, but on January 5th, she also stepped over into the spiritual realm in heaven. And so for that, I thank everybody for your thoughts. I thank everybody for your prayers. And I thank everybody for riding with us through this process. Thank you so much. In the meantime, in between time, to the next time. Bye. I love you, Mama.